Yo, Luau. So my name is Tim Cser. I am Senior Technology Specialist with Sigma, and we're doing these weekly webinar videos, demonstrations, just to give some more information out there while we're all working from home and staying safe. So I'm going to get started. This one today is on granulated media and solubility, and it's kind of on media in general. And that dog in the front screen is Max, the pup, and there's a better than 50-50 shot he messes this video up. No. So what are we going to talk about today? By the way, this will be recorded and we will send it to people. Also, we have some technology specialists and marketing experts in the chat box. So if you have questions in the chat box, just put them in the chat and we'll answer them for you either now or later. So today we're going to talk about media. How can you do 30 minutes on media, you might ask? Well, we can do it even with a smile on our face. What is ISO 11133? Another ISO regulation that people probably don't know a ton about. Making media, not only how do we make it, but also how do you make it? And then some troubleshooting tips on what can go wrong. And then we have a live demo with a couple of special guests on media. Okay, let's get started. What is ISO 11133? Well, there was no standard for a long time on making media, quality of media, quality control organisms to use, ingredients. So of course, ISO comes out and they made a standard, ISO 11133. And what that really means for us is that we're held to a specific quality level, meaning that we test everything. We test the pH, we test the gel strength, we use quality ingredients, we test incoming raw ingredients, so that we're held to a higher standard than, let's say, anybody who just wanted to make media in their garage. Because anybody could do it. It's not that it's terribly difficult. It's just that this standard gives everybody a standard to live up to. So what does that mean mostly for you? It mostly means that all the ingredients and media that we make are quality, but that on your C of A for your augers, you will have a number, a value. And that's what I brought up here is an actual value. So you can see that we've got on a specific medium that we've got a batch value of 30 for Staph aureus, and our recovery rate was greater than 50, so it was 68%. Now you might see other media manufacturers put a plus or a 3 pluses or a good growth or a check or something like that. And ISO 11133 makes people put quantification on their value for augers. We also do it kind of for broths, but that's not easy to do as far as getting an absolute number. We just do it more by density, turbidity. So I'm not going to go through all of ISO 11133, because that would be super boring, and I only have a half hour, and I don't read my slides anyway either. So if you want it, you can go get it. Internally, we have access to all the ISOs. Externally, you can your company probably has access to the ISO documents. So what do they say? It basically says you should have sufficient testing for the acceptability of each batch. Oh. Can everyone put themselves on mute? Thank you. So that the medium, it works. And we've had media fail in the past for sure. We test it, particularly with selective media, it's harder because those ingredients can even be toxic to the organisms that they're trying to select for. So you want to make sure that each batch of medium that you create lives up to a quality standard and you have consistent results. So that's our granulated media there on the right. And when we talk about just basic weighing and rehydration, you want to use obviously the correct volumes of water. You don't want to use just tap water. With agar media, you can let it soak and that will help with the dissolvability. And then you don't want to use a 1 liter container with 1 liter of water, obviously, because it will spill and make a mess. I made a lot of media in college and after college, and I burned a lot of media. I spilled a lot of media. flowing over the top. It was a very good exercise in what not to do as a dumb kid. But you just want to make sure that you have a safe with a spinny hot plate and the right type of Pyrex containers. And you don't want to inhale the powder. If you've ever made media and come home from making, TSA all day in the lab, you will certainly have this very specific smell in your nose, yeast extract, and other ingredients too. And some media is pretty toxic. You'll get a bottle of media that'll have a skull and crossbones or an X, and some of those ingredients can be really toxic. So you don't want to really breathe in that powder. And you'll see people have fume hoods or dust hoods when they're making media. And the nice part about the granulated media is it produces quite a bit less dust, which we will show. And I just showed this because it's just a good picture that we did an experiment showing how much dust landed around the balance when we were pouring and just weighing out. And so it ended up being, the granulated media. It's not that it's dust free. Some people say dust free. It's not dust free. It's just that it's a lot less, at least 50% less. And this is how we proved it. We said that with granulated media, 3 different formula, that we ended up having 20 or less grams, and then other people had at least 40, milligrams of media that landed around the balance. So this is a little glimpse and a peek into what we do where our media is made in Darmstadt. Up here on the left, we have the milling balls. These are ceramic balls that are really, really hard to break, and they get put in the machine here, and they mill all the ingredients together to get a real fine powder. And then we put it into this is a 2-story building where we put it into this giant worm screw kind of funnel, and all the media goes in there, and then it gets mixed together, and then it comes out the bottom here. And we do, that's not 4.5 kilograms. That's actually, it's a kind of a German thing. It's 4,500 kilograms per batch. So we do tons and tons and tons of media. And the granulator, and this is the cool part. We started granulated media back in the 60s, I believe. And before that, we had the first patent ever on media. And the way the granulator works is this little device. The media comes down this funnel, and it goes right into this machine. It's called a BPEX. And these 2 barrels have little pits and a matching barrel. So the pit matches the little part that comes out of the other granulator. And so when you push the media down, it forms little granules. So it's not powder, it's actually more like sugar or coffee. After we get done doing that, and you make your media, you want to check your media for pH using a temperature probe, and we do that obviously in our lab. You want to adjust your media after autoclaving with a filter sterilized 1 molar sodium hydroxide or hydrochloric acid, and the media might have a higher pH before autoclaving as well. So you shouldn't have to do a pH adjustment before. You really shouldn't, but every now and again there might be necessary, depending on the kind of odd media you might have. But afterwards, it's going to go down probably a little bit. That's pretty normal. And some people will still do a little bit of sodium hydroxide or 1 more sodium hydroxide or hydrochloric acid to adjust the pH. So a lot of media raw ingredients are pretty dirty. So all the parts that we use are from countries with no BSE or TSE. They're certified. But we get cows. So after we get the part that we eat, the rest of the part of the cow goes into other things like media. So it's really pretty dirty. Media is pretty packed with bacteria, yeast, and mold. So you want to make sure that when you pour it in that you end up getting no media on the side of the wall. You don't want any media sticking to the top or sticking to the rim. You don't want to over autoclave it, because if you over autoclave it, you'll end up what's called a Maillard reaction. And the Maillard reaction really is just browning. It's a toast. Turning bread into toast is the Maillard reaction. It's just a chemistry reaction. But with media, if you burn the sugar, you'll end up with a medium that doesn't support growth. So you want to make sure you don't over sterilize. A lot of people don't know that you can over sterilize and you can render the media. Not that it doesn't grow, it just doesn't support the growth in the way that it should. So you really want to make sure that you don't over sterilize the media. Follow those instructions that are on the bottle, and then you got to make sure you check your load size. For certain, if you're sterilizing 15 liters of media, it's going to be a different load than 1 liter of media, and you want to make sure that that center of the autoclave is hot enough. There's other parts of the autoclave where you might end up seeing that there's cold spots, and you should have mapped your autoclave. You should know that ahead of time as well. And then you want to add other things at the end by sterile filtration. There's going to be things that are heat labile that will break down in the autoclave, so you want to add those at the end. And there's many different media with many different ways of adding additives. And you don't want to do it too hot because that, again, they're heat labile. So if you do it even when the media is really hot, you'll end up not having an effective addition. So this says Annex C, and that's part of the ISO 11133. What is when we have incomplete solubility, we have inadequate soaking, incomplete mixing. Tap water is not a good idea because it's not controlled, and you can end up having lots of agents in there. It could be very highly mineralized, and you could end up getting some settling out. So that's why we don't use tap water. And then you don't want to keep repeating melting solidified agar. You will end up with problems. In addition, we have seen people hold TSB for a long time, and you will start to see some protein precipitates over time. What looks like turbidity or contamination is actually the protein starting to bond together, and they'll form like little strings that are barely noticeable but look a lot like turbidity, but it's actually precipitate. So improper gel strength, and this is these guys they're troubleshooting. That's what these guys are doing. They want the cheese, so they're troubleshooting. You want to make sure, again, that you have that agar completely mixed, because the agar is what's going to solidify that medium. So mixing is the biggest deal. Mixing, people will do it on the hot plate. You got to watch your hot plate, because certainly if you leave it almost indefinitely, definitely if you leave it, it'll flow over the top, and that's just a big giant mess if you've ever done that in a media kitchen. So some other chemistry, some other stuff based off of too much heating, not enough mixing. So you just want to make sure you follow the instructions. Making media is as much about art as it is science. It's as much about practicing like you would any recipe in the kitchen. You just kind of get used to knowing when things are mixed and when things are ready. So pH drift, again, it's mixing, excessive heating. You could have some sort of reaction going on, again, because your water is reacting with the media, because there's a lot of stuff in this media. So just some chemistry reactions, also mixing and heating. Yeah, it looks like they didn't find their cheese. Here, there was a reason to troubleshoot. I guess they didn't want to have a reason to troubleshoot on this one. Oh well, too bad for the mice. So thank you. And did we get any questions in the chat?
Hi, Tim. We have not yet.
Not at this point.
Okay. Well, allow me, I'm going to call in my two very underpaid, highly underpaid, I would say, assistants, and they are going to be here to assist me with a demonstration. That's Whitney.
This one's late.
And the latecomer is Emily. Whitney is 14, just promoting from 8th grade this year. And Whitney, what is your favorite thing about microbiology?
I have to say my favorite thing about microbiology is Koch's postulates, because it pertains to so much what is happening today. Koch's postulates theorize that there are certain unseen microorganisms that can cause specific diseases.
That is true. That is applicable today. Hey, Emily, what's your favorite thing about microbiology?
I like lactic acid bacteria because it makes cheese, and I like mac and cheese.
Yes, you do. Excellent. Well, here is our demonstration today. We have two stir plates. we've got some powdered media and we've got some granulated media. And I'm going to get up close on this granulated media so you can see the difference between that and powdered media. Okay, great. So we're going to start with Whitney. She is going to pour some media here into this jar. Go ahead, pour.
Whoa, that is a lot of dust.
Was that a lot? Whoa, look at all that dust. Man, that's gonna get in my nose. That's a lot. Okay, Emily, you have some granulated media here in our ready bag format. Why don't you go ahead and pour that into the bag jar?
That's a lot less dust.
Is that a lot less dust?
Yeah.
That seemed like a lot less dust. So we've got our fancy science scooper here. Why don't you show the science scooper, otherwise known as an ice cream scoop. And we've also got an ice cream scoop. And what we're going to do is we're going to pour media into these liter jars at the same time. Let's go. Excellent. Look at that. Now we've got all the media at the bottom, stirring, mixing. And this one, as we all know, media always sticks at the top. So you have to go into the top of the jar and get all of that media off of the top, off of the walls. That's a little bit extra work. While this one is going into solution. Yeah. Great. And while that stirs, these girls worked hard on this video. Did you have fun?
Yes, had very much fun.
Say hi to the rest of the microbiology world.
It's fun.
Great. Okay, you're dismissed. And while these spin and dissolve, did we end up with any questions in the chat box?
We had a question that I answered on the difference between selective and general media, which I answered, but you can feel free to elaborate.
Okay. What? Someone said they couldn't see the demonstration? Was it visible?
It was
Okay, great.
Yep.
came through, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, Maria, that you couldn't see the demonstration. Here, I'll show it with my computer here.
We will make sure there's a link available for everybody.
So here's the media mixing, and this is the granulated media, and this is the powdered media. And not that it's not that the granulated media goes into solution terribly faster. It's not that it beats the powdered media by 5 minutes. It's just that it's less work because when you pour it, it goes to the bottom, and then you don't have to do anything else. And all the granules, when they're pressed together, when this media ships, you don't get a settling out effect. So for a powdered media, what can happen over time is some of the heavier ingredients will settle out to the bottom, and then you don't have an even mixing. With granulated media, all those ingredients are pressed together, and so that even the granules on the bottom have the same composition as the granules on the top. Oh, okay. People didn't see it. What was the question was about? So general media is like a TSB or a TSA, even a chocolate agar, anything that would grow, plate count agar. They grow a wide variety of organisms. Pretty much anything that can grow on media that's out, that any bug that's out and about that can grow on media, that's what the general media tries to do. Selective agar is where you're selecting for a specific set of organisms, where you might say a Baird Parker, where you're looking for a Staph aureus, and you might have ingredients where you are inhibiting other media, or excuse me, organisms, trying to select for specific organisms. And then differential media is where you might have a chromogenic medium, like our chromacol, where you would see E. coli and coliforms in a purple or blue format, and other organisms might be a red or a clear or a tan kind of color. So there's general, there's selective, and there's differential, and all of those media has specific purposes. And one of the things I like to make sure people know is that even with differential and selective media, they can be toxic to the organisms they're trying to grow. And the reason for that is you're putting in ingredients that in general are kind of toxic to yeast and mold bacteria or whatever the organisms might be. And it's just that one organism might be less sensitive to it. So it's not that it happens in all cases. It's just that that's the reason that selective augers will have a lower recovery, because we know that in some cases it's actually somewhat toxic to the bugs that they're trying to select for. Veronica asks, yes, no, there is no way to maintain a very specific color on media. The raw ingredients are just that, very, very raw ingredients. So that's why we'll say something like, when we make it up, the color tan or beige like. And I know that question, Veronica, because if someone's using another brand and they use our brand and they say, oh, wow, this is a lot more gold, there's no way to change, to be so specific with the color, because the peptones that we're using are from all over, well, again, the countries that are BSE, TSE free, but it's the cow, batch to batch of the cows, which is hard to select for. The shelf life, Annette, thank you. The shelf life is 3 to 5 years, with 5 years on most of our media, and we can say it's longer because of the granulation, because it will hold its composition. I just read that some people are using shelf life of prepared media, like plates and bottles, for quite a long time, 6 months up to a year. I think we had only recommended up to a month for some of our, where you prepare your own plates. But that's a validation as well. You should do that validation to show that something like a TSA is probably okay, but something where you have some selective ingredients, I would definitely want to test longer than a month. Make sure you're using the media correctly at the end of the shelf life, prepared shelf life. Yes, Anna Maria, some people do adjust the pH after autoclaving. They'll use filter sterilized sodium hydroxide, one molar sodium hydroxide or 1 molar hydrochloric acid. Yeah, shouldn't need to be, really shouldn't need to be, but some people, if they need to, they do. But it's not common. Good question, Luis. Is it possible we can see mistakes? Well, color is a big one. If let's say you, like with buffered peptone water, you're supposed to use 29 grams. Some people might feel like they can cheat and use 26 and get more out of a bottle. I would confirm that. I know that it seems like it wouldn't matter, but there's a lot that goes into the media that we say 29 grams. Not only that, it's based off of bacterial the FDA BAM specifies how much media to use. So I would say to make sure they're using the right amount of media, the right amount of autoclaving. A lot of people think, oh, well, I'll autoclave for 20 minutes instead of 15. And that might be a standard. It just depends on the medium. You just want to make sure that you're following the directions and that you're not assuming that it's the same directions for all of them. A lot of times you might be able to just boil a media and you can't autoclave it, and maybe they don't know that. Or they didn't boil it. They didn't get to the point of boiling. Maybe they got it hot and not all the way boiling. It just depends. I wore this lei because this shirt, this Millipore Sigma shirt, is just white, and I thought that was too boring with this white background. So you can see that our media is nice and dissolved and ready to go. And if I had a hot plate, it would be even faster. By the way, I bought these little stir plates off of Amazon, and they are maybe the single cheapest piece of lab equipment I've ever seen. They're great for these purposes, but if you're gonna get a stir plate, these aren't hot plates, but if you're gonna get a stir plate or a hot plate or both combo, I would definitely spend some money on those because they're gonna get a lot of use. Super. Any further questions? We'll be on for another 5 minutes monitoring the chat if there are no more questions, and we'll just answer the questions in the chat. So thanks everybody. Thanks for coming. I appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed it. I mean, it's media, so it's about as simple as it gets for a demo. Thanks guys. Have a great day.